I am super excited about today's video because we are combining two of my absolute favorite things. The works of J.R.R. Tolkien and video games.
In a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit. Bilbo Baggins was a respected hobbit. He lived a comfortable life and never had any adventures.
The Hobbit is a game that was made by a company called Sierra that I'm not even 100% sure exists anymore. I haven't played any of their games recently. They might still be making games, but they've never topped this one.
You've slept half the morning, Mr. Baggins. That won't convince Thorin that you're a fierce burglar.
The game came out in 2001, right about the time that the Lord of the Rings movies were such a hit and such a phenomenon. So this game really comes from all of that renewed interest in the world of J.R.R. Tolkien. But don't let that discourage you. It wasn't something that was thrown together at the last minute to live off the popularity of the movies. It is a great game.
What's this? My pocket has sprouted a hole. Oh, my silver pennies must be scattered all over Hobbiton.
I cannot begin to tell you how many hours I put into this game when I was a kid because I've had it for years, but I did just recently replay through the entire thing. And it definitely still stands up. I was impressed by how much I still enjoyed it. One of the first things that has to be said about this game is it's beautiful. Probably the most beautiful part of this game is Hobbiton. It's where you start out, and I used to spend hours just running around Hobbiton, and especially running up and down the old water wheel. It's very loosely based on the book in some parts. Obviously, Bilbo never runs around on a water wheel in the book, but that doesn't take away from the game. It's so much fun, and there's so many characters that we get to meet, different hobbits that you get to interact with. Gandalf and the dwarves all have very distinct personalities, even though they don't get a lot of screen time because you are playing as Bilbo Baggins. The next best thing about this game is the music. The music in this game is absolutely breathtaking. Honestly, if any of you guys know where I can get a soundtrack for this game, hit me up because I would just listen to this music on repeat all the time. It's amazing. Especially the Hobbiton music. The game, of course, is based on the book. It's not based on the Hobbit movies because those weren't out yet, and it's not based on the old Rankin and Bass Hobbit movie either. And since it's based on the book, it does follow the story of the book pretty impressively closely. It adds some stuff in. There's some things that aren't in the book. There are scenes that are extended that take a lot longer to play through than were in the book. But it does a really good job of introducing you to the story of The Hobbit. It was actually my first introduction to the story of The Hobbit because, like I said, the Hobbit movies weren't out yet. Although I might have seen the Rankin and Bass Hobbit before I played this game. I'm not 100% sure. Another thing that I really love about this game, there are some Easter eggs for Tolkien's works.
Soon the company reached Rivendell, home of the elves.
So the scene you just watched is the dwarves arriving in Rivendell. Unfortunately, you never get to run around Rivendell. That's the only scene in Rivendell. It cuts from that scene to being in the mountains, dealing with the goblins. But if you pay attention in that scene, there's a pretty big Easter egg. Looks right behind Elrond. You can see that little person standing there. At first it looks like a hobbit or maybe a dwarf, but it doesn't look artistically right for the hobbits or the dwarves. So that only leaves one person that it could possibly be, and that is Aragorn. If you don't know, Aragorn was actually raised in Rivendell. So there's that Easter egg, and there are a couple of others that are throughout the game that are really fun to look out for. Of course, it does a great job of taking parts of the story that could be kind of boring and turning them into something really playable. One of the most challenging scenes, in my opinion, is the scene where you're sneaking into Smaug's chambers.
Smaug! And Thorin's golden cup is right underneath his nose.
Because you have to sneak around without waking up the dragon. You're grabbing all of this gold, and you're going by all of these treasures, and you're collecting things for Thorin, and you can't wake up Smaug. I can't tell you how many times I woke up Smaug while I was playing this. Actually, I take that back. I think the most challenging part of this game is this weird scene that's sort of in a bog at the end of the forest as you're leaving Mirkwood.
Who disturbs my rest?
Because when I played this game as a kid, I never could get past that level, and even replaying as an adult, man, that was a hard level to get through. It was a lot easier than I remembered, but it was really challenging to me, and from what I found on the internet, there were a lot of other people who agreed it's pretty dang challenging. And it's interesting, actually, there's a female elf who helps you at one point when you're trying to escape the Elven King after you are rescued from Mirkwood Forest by the elves, and I think it's interesting that she's a character in this game because she kind of reminds me of Tariel, even though Tariel obviously hadn't been invented yet because she's not in the books. So maybe this is where Peter Jackson came up with the idea for that, I don't know. I just think it's interesting that she's so similar to Tariel, who doesn't exist yet. One place where this game kind of falls short is in large action sequences. You know, during the Battle of the Five Armies sequences, you'll kill 5 or 6 orcs, and they leave, and then you kill 5 or 6 other goblins, and then they leave. There's really no sense of this big battle. It's little thing here, little thing here, little thing here, little thing here. So that's one of the places this game falls short, is everything feels very small and contained, especially during that battle. But of course, like in the books, Bilbo's not really a part of that battle for very long because he gets conked over the head. And this might actually be one of the creepiest Golems I've ever seen. Every version of Gollum is different, everyone depicts him differently. But this Golem is, like all of them, super weird and slightly frog-like, which is weird in its own way.
Hands, knife, string, nothing!
All wrong. Now, show me the way out.
One of the most fun levels, other than Hobbiton, is Lake Town. You could spend hours wandering around Lake Town. There's a ton of things to do. For such an old game, it's really a big world. It's not open world, of course. I would love an open world Lord of the Rings game, other than Lord of the Rings Online, which I don't really do a lot of PC gaming. This game is one of those that definitely has a lot of replay value, because you're never gonna find everything on your first playthrough, and unfortunately you can't go back one level at a time. You have to do it all chronologically. So I can't skip back to the ones where I missed some of the stuff. I would have to play all the way up to that, and then all the way past that. I wish I could play it just one level at a time, but unfortunately that's not really possible. I played this game on a PC. That's the version that I had. That's the one I had when I was a kid. It's also available on PlayStation. I don't know how different that is. I would love to get it for the PlayStation and do a comparison just to see what it's like, but I haven't done that yet. But overall, it's such a fun game if you like The Lord of the Rings, or if you like retro gaming. I think it says a lot about the style of games from the early 2000s. It's just a really fun, pretty easy game. Yes, there are some spots that are pretty challenging, but it's not impossible to get through. You're not gonna just be dying over and over and over, except possibly in that one part in Mirkwood, where I did die over and over and over. So that is that. Let me know what you think if you've played this game. I want to start doing a lot more with video games, but especially with video games that are based on books. I have the old Harry Potter games that I really want to play. I have some Aragon games. I have a lot of Lord of the Rings games. The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit have been turned into some really spectacular video games over the years, and so I really do want to do a lot about them on this channel, but I also want to branch out a little and talk about some other games, because I think that's a lot of fun. And there are other games out there like World of Warcraft, like Dragon Age, and like the Elder Scrolls that have some great fiction books that go along with them. Pretty soon I'm actually going to be posting a review of an Elder Scrolls book series that I loved that is set in the world of the Elder Scrolls. So let me know what games you'd like to see. What are your favorite video games that are based on books, or just your favorite games in general? Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you hit that bell, you'll be notified as soon as I post a new video. I do post videos as frequently as possible. Thank you.
I suspect I'll be bruised and battered to pieces. Get moving, burglar! We continue to Lake Town! In a barrel? Ah.
I do hope I put the lids on tight.
Off we go!
Dwarves were not meant for this sort of travel.
I can hardly breathe in here.
Wait for me!
Hey, what's it? Baggins!